Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, 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 Namanda. Please join me in reading the Golden Chain too. I'm a link in the Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also that of others. May every link in the Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandab, 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 namandab. We will now chant Junirai. 知識往生不退死亡大我が将来未来尊我先非尊苦毒地修善無変妙海水小逆善言少乗者衛生衆上昇飛行ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブ願にしくどく平等正義道本母大心往生安楽ナモアミダ仏ナモアミダ仏ナモアミダ仏ナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダナマンダ We'll now sing the Gatha Shinshu Shuka.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to start with my Dharma message for this morning. And I have a brief PowerPoint to share. So I'll pull that up right now. If you'll please join me in Gassho, I'd like to share a passage with you. The message of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism in the 21st century has the potential to touch the minds and hearts of multitudes of people in all walks of life. The faith of Nembutsu and Amida Buddha could influence many religious movements in the English-speaking world. Jodo Shinshu teaches the equality of all sentient beings within great compassion. Great compassion is Buddha of infinite light and life, of wisdom and compassion, of enlightenment truth itself, Amida. This great compassion pervades all life, regardless of circumstances. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. The passage I shared for today's Gosandai is technically not a Gosandai. Jodo Shinshu ministers are supposed to use the words of our founder, Shinran Shonin, or the seven Pure Land Masters for our opening quotes or passages that we share. With that caveat out of the way, I deliberately chose this passage for today's Dharma talk because in the US, May is National Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And in my talk, I wanted to honor the work of Reverend Dr. Seigen Yamaoka, who's a retired Jodo Shinshu minister and former bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America. Additionally, Reverend Yamaoka has been teaching at the Institute of Buddhist Studies for over a decade, with a focus on practical ministerial training and spiritual and pastoral care. On top of all of this, Reverend Yamaoka has been a mentor, advisor, and dear friend to me during my 5 years of study at the Institute of Buddhist Studies. Like many of our Jodo Shinshu teachers and ministers, Reverend Yamaoka is a Nikkeijin, or of Japanese ancestry, and he's a Nisei, which means second generation. Yamaoka Sensei is part of the first generation in his family to be born in the United States. He grew up a farmer and led a unique life. He always tells us in his classes that he was never very, quote, academically inclined, end quote. But others in his community compelled him to pursue the path of becoming a minister. I remember Reverend Yamaoka explaining that the ministry was terrifying to him because at the time it required him to move to Japan and study at Ryukoku University in Kyoto. He didn't know any Japanese language at the time, and he would have to leave his friends and family in the US to live in a foreign nation. After years of hard work and training in Kyoto, Reverend Yamaoka would come back to the US to serve as a minister. But still, he felt woefully unprepared to actually serve the temple community. Things are very different between Japan and the United States. After a few years, Reverend Yamaoka made the controversial decision to pursue his Master's of Religious Education and then a doctorate of the ministry at the Pacific School of Religion, or PSR, in Berkeley. He told me several times that though he appreciated the education he received in becoming a minister in Kyoto, he felt like he needed to navigate new ways of connecting the doctrine of Jodo Shinshu to the lives of average lay people, which is the core inspiration for the passage that I just shared with everyone at the start of this talk. On the left, you see a book that he published in 2005. It was edited and republished in 2007 with the cover on the right. And it reflects the hard work and research that Reverend Yamaoka did during the decades he works as a minister, a student, a scholar, and a teacher. During his time teaching at the Institute of Buddhist Studies, or IBS, Reverend Yamaoka has touched the lives of dozens, if not hundreds of students, most of whom are either now Jodo Shinshu ministers or on the path to becoming ministers. His course is called Issues in Buddhist Ministry, and it focuses on the content of his book, which is a theological model for understanding Jodo Shinshu doctrine and for connecting those teachings to personal life events. This course helps to lay the foundations for ministerial and pastoral and spiritual caregiving in a Jodo Shinshu context. Beyond that, though, in his class, we all form a tight community and a spiritual formation. Over the semester, we share painful stories of loss, abuse, neglect, and trauma. And all of us, sensei included, gets to know one another much better, and we learn more about each other on our path toward healing our fractured selves. Reverend Yamaoka leads by example, exposing difficulty and vulnerability in his own life. He creates a safe space for his students to authentically share incredibly personal and difficult parts of their lives. And we all learn to cultivate skills of listening, care, and support that are invaluable to ministers and other spiritual or pastoral caregivers. Not only do we cultivate these skills for supporting others, but we also learn to build community and understanding our shared suffering. These concepts of mutual aid, care, support, and shared suffering are fundamental to the Buddhist teachings contained within the Four Noble Truths. To provide care and space for suffering is Buddhist practice. I'd like to share a quote from The Arts of Contemplative Care, which is a book on Buddhist pastoral and spiritual care. It says, Buddhist chaplaincy, ministry, and pastoral work are each practices of presence. We show up with those who are suffering, dying, or in need of care. We show up to listen, to be attentive, and to come alongside others. In the process, those dedicated to the practice of care grow and evolve spiritually. It's not all about the patient or student or the one who's cared for. It's about relationship and interbeing. From my experiences with Reverend Yamaoka and his classes, he embodies this experience of reciprocal care and learning. When someone shares in our group, in the class, everyone else listens attentively. Practicing active listening and being present for the speaker. After that speaker has finished sharing what are oftentimes traumatic life events, we take a moment to respond, which also requires a lot of patience and skill. We cultivate that mindset for our ministry throughout the semester in Reverend Yamaoka's classes. I strongly believe that this practice of other-centered care is sorely missing in our everyday lives, and that we could all benefit from practicing decentering ourselves. This isn't to say that we don't acknowledge or validate our own pain, but when we notice that someone else is suffering, we have the opportunity to support and practice kindness with that person. Reverend Yamaoka has been a bright and guiding light in my life. He's taught me that in order for me to be an effective caregiver and minister, I have to constantly examine and re-examine the pain in my own life for myself. Working through all of that isn't easy, but if we can see an expansive sense of that pain that includes more than just myself, then I can really be a force for kindness and compassion in a world that's filled with selfishness and hyper-individualism. I don't think that these skills and practices that we've been looking at in today's talk, these gifts from Reverend Yamaoka has imparted to his students, are exclusive tools for ministers and spiritual and pastoral caregivers. Rather, they're essential components of building our lives as Buddhists. It's how we build Sangha. It's how we love and support one another. And it's how we might make space for healing, compassion, and growth in our broken society. I'd like to finish my Dharma message today by reading Reverend Yamaoka's passage once more. Please join me in Gassho. The message of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism in the 21st century has the potential to touch the minds and hearts of multitudes of people in all walks of life. The faith of Nembutsu and Amida Buddha could influence many religious movements in the English-speaking world. Jodo Shinshu teaches the equality of all sentient beings within great compassion. Great compassion is the Buddha of infinite light and life. of wisdom and compassion, of enlightenment truth itself, Amida. This great compassion pervades all life, regardless of circumstances. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, namanda, namanda. Thank you for joining us for today's Dharma Family Service. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and I hope to see you again.